Year of work were destroyed in half an hour, said farmer Katja Weber. Several devastated fields. Air traffic was also disrupted. Munich International Airport reported numerous flights delayed as a ground crews worked to clear runway and ice and debris. Train service were suspended on several routes after tracks were blocked by fallen branches and damaged power lines. Insurance companies have already begun assessing to damage which could run into the billion, making the storm one of the most expensive hailstorms in the Germany recent history. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by a rare combination of the most Mediterranean air cold into the North Cold Front and phenomenon increasingly linking to climate change. Bavarian officials promised to provide rapid assistance to residents of farmers, while scientists warned such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. For many residents of the region, this hailstorm will be remembered not only for this sudden force, but also as another sign for changing climate reality in Europe. Germany was hit by its most severe hailstorm in recent years, with the giant ice pellets reaching 5 cm in diameter battered cities in towns of Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg. The storm, which erupted suddenly in the late afternoon, turned streets into rivers and ice caused severe damage of vehicles, roofs and crops. Meteorological from the German Weather Service described the storm as high unusually from the time to year, explaining that atmospheric instability, the most air from the southern Europe, contributed to this formation. The meteorologist Anna Kira stated that was a classic example of supercell activity, adding the storm developing rapidly and dropped destructive hail within a minute. In Munich, windows shattered into pieces and vehicles were parked by the contrast hall as emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. Public transport was temporarily halted to clear debris and ice from the track. In rural area, vineyards and cornfields suffered extensive damage, with the initial estimates suggesting agriculture losses could exceed 15 million euros. This week, a violent hailstorm struck southern Germany, hitting Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg with unprecedented force. Hailstorm the size of a golf ball in the some areas tennis ball pelted down from about 13 minutes caused devastation damage rarely seen in the region. According to the German Weather Service, the storm rapidly developing of the Alps before the moving northward. Meteorologist Thomas Heath explained it was perfect storm combining high humidity, unstable air and strong temperature difference. He stated the hail crosses reached extreme high, generated massive destructive hailstorm. In Munich, neighboring and Augsburg, thousands of residents shared video of hail blanket their cities. Winter scene and flooded immediately out of place in early autumn. Roofs were destroyed, cars were dented beyond the rear, and trees stripped of hail and their leaves. It was a dented sound. Emergency response teams were dispatched to multiple districts as the roads were blocked by the flood and debris. Germany was hit by a powerful and fast-moving storm that swept across the country overnight, leaving a trail of destruction from Bavaria to North Rhine-Westphalia. Strong winds exceeded 120 km/h, torrential through rain, intense lightning strikes disrupted transport link, damaged infrastructure, and caused hundreds of emergency rescue operations. In Munich, streets remained flooded after hours of continuing rain. Trains stopped running, flights and French Joseph Strain Airport were delayed, and passenger forced traffic jams "It was terrible. The wind howled like a train and the rain poured down sideways," said Clara Hoffman, a local resident whose balcony was destroyed by the storm. Further north in Cologne and Düsseldorf, powerful gust of winds uprooted trees and smashed cars. Emergency service responded to more than 2,000 calls, including flood in basements and damaged power lines. The German Meteorological Service issued the highest weather warning, urged residents to stay indoors. Sadly, at least 2 deaths have been reported, once in Bavaria where 3 fell on a car and another in Saxony due to flash flooding. Authority warning that river levels, particularly on the Rhine and Elbe, remain dangerously high and continuously rainfall reserves. Insurance companies are preparing for such and the claims and the homeward, and businesses begin to assess the full extent of the damage. According to preliminary estimates, the potential losers from the storm could amount to hundreds of millions of euros, although the exact figure will become clear after a full assessment is carried out. Local authorities have present the work emergency service, which have been scheduled the limit due to scale of the damage. Fire brigades, police and the rescue responded to thousands of calls after working in dangerous conditions. Volunteers also joined to clear debris and provide assistance in vulnerable population, especially in rural areas where access the emergency service was difficult. Environmental experts note the increasing in the frequency of the storm and the magnitude is likely to climate change and call more for discussing issue to reduce the risk assistance in the extreme weather events. In response, German political have called to accelerate action to climate change, and some have pushed to increasing investment in flood protection to the disaster preparedness. And the Green Party in particular related is called to major overload the country's infrastructure to better cope with such incidents. The storm also sparked discussion around the Germany's energy grid, several power outages in key regions highlighting the vulnerability of the country's energy infrastructure. While most of the outages were quickly repaired, emergency companies have been critiquing the slow restoration of some rural areas where communities were left without power to more than 24 hours. Now that the storm subsided, attention to turning recovery and reconstruction efforts. Local authorities have begun to process assessing the most affected areas to location resources to recovery efforts. Some regions are expected to take several weeks and fully recover from the disaster. Meanwhile, the German federal government has announced that financial assistance will be provided to those affected, especially in agriculture and small businesses. The affected of the storm are being felt beyond the German border in neighboring countries such as Poland and Czech Republic prepared to similar conditions. Meteorology agency across Europe has issued warning urging residents to the affected region prepare for the possible flooding and strong winds in the coming days. The storm serves stark reminder of increasing unpredictability of weather conditions in Europe and the need to coordinate response of such extreme weather events. Meanwhile, Germany continues to keep the peace, strangely in the defense against the growing threat to post extreme weather in renewed state of urgency. Bavaria was hit a severe hailstorm that caused chaos in the town and villages across the region. The storm, which swept across southern Germany late in the evening, pelted town with a hailstorm the size of a golf ball, smashed windows, damaged cars and injured dozens of residents. In Munich, town and buses were halted as hail covered the streets, and traffic on the Abandon slowed the standstill under the impact of the side. In smaller town, roofs were damaged, and emergency service reported thousands of calls waiting with a few hours. Dozens of people were taken to hospital with cuts, burns and head injury caused by the flying debris and collapsing buildings. Witnesses described horrific scenes. The hail was so long that it's impossible to hear each other. When the minutes our garden looked like it had snowed in summer. This is Thomas Sheldon, a resident of Augsburg. Video posted online showed cars covered in layer of ice and the trees stripped in their lives on the storm. Bavaria agriculture sector was severely affected. Vineyards in Francolina or fields in Helter, the large area of corn and wheat were destroyed in a matter of minutes. Farmers warned of crop losses that could reach hundreds of millions of euros. Munich was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned Bavaria capital into the city under siege. The storm, which broke out late in the evening, pelted the city with a hailstorm the size of walnuts, in some areas even tennis balls. Windows were broken, roofs were punctured, the car looked and they have been shot at. Within minutes, the central boulevard, the side streets were covered with ice, quickly flooding due to cold winds. Public transport came to standstill, trams and buses were stand halfway, and subway stations were flooded by torrential rain mixed with hail. Munich airport temporarily suspended takeoff and landing, with the ground crews cleared the runway of ice. Emergency service reported thousands of calls in just few hours. Hospitals treated dozens of people for cuts, burns, and a head injury caused by fallen debris and broken glass. At least one death have been confirmed and several more people remain in serious conditions. Residents describe it by a terrifying moment when a storm hit. The noise was deafening, like stones falling from the sky, said Anja Fischer, whose apartment window was shattered in Straubing. As Germany continues to deal with the aftermath in the storm, the extent of the damage is becoming increasingly clear. In addition to the immediate damage, long-term environmental, the economic impact of the extent, the agriculture sector, already vulnerable due to previous unpredictable weather conditions, is facing potentially devastating losers. The agriculture sector, already vulnerable due to previous unpredictable weather conditions, is facing potentially devastating losers. Initial reports from the farmers indicate the groups such as wheat can be barley severely damaged by the floods and events, especially in key agriculture regions such as Lower Saxony and Bavaria. The storm also caused damage on livestock farm where the animals will be evacuated due to rising water level. Agriculture associations were calling to government to provide emergency aid, warning the immediate action to not taken. The economic consequences could be severe. In the densely population Rus region will be hit by significant flooding. Authorities are now forcing to restoration basic service, water treatment plants and temporarily overloaded due to heavy rain, leading concerns about the confirmation in some areas. While officials issue a public that the situation was under control, they urged residents to bathe the water and precautionary measures until the flood in the ties. Environmental agencies are monitoring rising lakes and possible checked lakes to industrial facilities that were flooded during the storm. Concerns are growing the population could have a long-term impact on local ecosystem, including the fish wildlife population. One of the key challenges facing the authority is restoration of vital infrastructure. In some regions, brigades have had damage completely washed away by the flood waters, leaving isolated communities without easy access and neighbor town. Engineers are working to assess the infrastructure integrity of this brigade, but it could take months on the fully repair or replace them. Damage of roads, railroads, and power lines is also highlighting Germany's urgent need to invest in a climate resilience infrastructure. Experts have long warned that much of the country infrastructure is not adapted to the extreme weather events and becoming more frequent as the global temperature rise. Germany Green Plan, which has been a leading voice of the nation's stronger climate policy, to call immediate action. Party leaders noted the storm is another example of consequences of inaction of climate change. The storm has also intensified the public debate of Germany's energy transition. Engineers whether the aid of the country resilience of the fuel for renewable source and the wind is solar power. There is a government makes significant process in transition creates agriculture more need to be done to ensure that Germany's energy grid can be cope to extreme weather conditions. After the storm, some renewable emergency facilities such as wind turbines, the damage of high winds, raising questions about to make renewable energy infrastructure infrastructure and more weather resistance. Germany is looking to the future, and this is a wake-up call not only the political but also the general public. Discussion about the climate change resilience are no longer abstract. The devastation surfer crisis down farms across the country is brought to issue the forefront of the national consequences. It's not the growing to issue to federal and state government stretch disaster preparedness strategies and provide better protection to communities for the future storm, floods and heat waves. Several people suffered minor injuries from the blocking glass and the fallen branches. Rain traffic forced its disruption, with the Deutsche Bahn warning delays could continue due to overnight repair work. Agriculture damage is extensive. Hail destroyed it was the vineyard, cornfield and the orange. Local farmer John Mayer said the lost nearly his entire harvest. In the 10 minutes of year work washed, insurance companies estimated damage will exceed 100 million euros. Power outage occurred in several towns due to lightning strikes and hail damaging power lines. In Bavaria, some school and public institutions remain closer to structural damage assessment in safety inspiration. Climate scientists point out in the phenomenon highlighting Europe's increasing vulnerability to extreme weather. Hailstorms to magnitude were one of the rarer, state climate scientist Dr. Katrin Hoffmann, but his global warning process the emergency in the atmospheric increasing making storms more intense. After the storm passed, the sky cleaned, a relative and surreal landscape is gleamed in the ice-shattered glass. The resident it was night in terror and astonishment. The chilling reminder of even in one of Europe's most developing countries of the power nature can strike without warning. Social media was flooded with the videos showing rivers and hail sweeping through the marine plants and the cars buried under the white pile of ice. Munich green spaces and surrounding farmland were destroyed. The trees in the England garden were completely stripped bare, and the neighboring orchards and hop fields suffered catastrophic damage. Raising fields and significant losers is agriculture. 10 minutes destroyed a well-seasoned work, said farmer Lucas Buller. Authorities estimated the damage of hundreds of millions of euros, and insurance companies are bracing for avalanches of claims. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by the hot, humid and cooling with a sharp northern cold front, an extepable mixed with becoming more common in the Central Europe's changing climate. The Bavarian government has promised to provide emergency aid assistance with the cleanup, but not many Munich residents. The storm was stark reminder of how vulnerable even the modern city when the natural unleashed its fury. A powerful storm has swept through Germany, caused widespread destruction and significant damage in several regions. The storm, which brought heavy rain, strong winds and flooding, affected both urban and rural areas, forcing authorities to issue numerous warnings and close major transportation routes. The northern and central parts of the country were hardest hit, with wind speed reaching 113 km per hour in some areas. Coastal region forces storm surge were led to temporarily close to parts of the shipping homes. In major cities like Hamburg and Bremen, the storm caused delays and cancellation of train and flights, while downed trees and damaged power lines left thousands of without electricity. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls, cleared flooded basements, collapsing roofs and blocked roads. Firefighters worked throughout the clock to clear debris and rescue damaged buildings. Despite the chaos of fatalities, no were reported, although several people were injured by fallen branches and debris. In rural area, farmers reported significant damage to crops and livestock. Floodwaters swept through the agriculture fields, raising concerns about the impact of oncoming harvest season. Local authority in affected region is currently assessing the damage to preparing for possible financial assistance to support recovery efforts. The German Weather Service issued a severe weather warning ahead the storm, advised residents to avoid unnecessary travel to stay at home. Many schools were closed to safety reasons and a public event and cancelled it. Meteorologists warn that extreme weather conditions in Germany are becoming more frequent in climate change in contributing and increasing in intensity of the storm and floods. This is not the first time Germany has had to deal with the extreme weather conditions, but the frequency and severity of such events rising constantly about the countries reiterate the further challenges. Authorities have urged citizens to take weather warnings seriously and ensure to their homes and advise protect to the storm and flooding. As the storm moves eastward, northward contact and also high alert to possible flooding the storm damage. The full extent of the damage in Germany is still by acid, but recovery force in expected to the several days is not weeks.
C'è un mio.